Winter Bible workshops. What even is that? And by the way, do we have these in person or on Zoom as a pandemic and local COVID surge fades? Why even bother to disciple in a new way now? It can, and it did happen. Let's chat about it. Welcome to Clear Creek Chat. That's chat with two T's, because this podcast is coming to you from Chattanooga, Tennessee, and is a ministry of the Clear Creek Church of Christ. In each episode, we gather a friend or two and have a chat about issues that touch our lives locally and have implications for the broader kingdom of God. My name is Laura Harbin. I'm the children's minister here, and today I'm joined by Helen Cothran of the power duo Dan and Helen. And later on, I'll also talk to the lady of all trades, Jennifer Spry. And today, Miss Helen, welcome. You and your husband Dan are veteran Bible teachers in preschool and our elementary department here at Clear Creek, and you are also strong community volunteers within our school system and our area food bank. So today is super cold in April here in Chattanooga, and we are having our last winter snap, I suppose. I know you and your family love gardening and planting, but this year's a little different. So have you planted anything tonight that you're worried about?
You know, this year we didn't plant. We moved into an apartment. But I did break down and buy flowers, only 4 pots, so I will bring them in tonight.
Good. I know. I'm a little worried about my strawberry plant. I'm going to have to bring it in.
Cover it up.
Yes. So like interests that you have in flowers and things that bloom, we also know you have other interests outside of teaching the Bible. And so your job is a scientist. And so recently, Helen was invited to lead a winter Bible workshop, and what these were geared towards tying the Bible into specific subjects like science. And so Helen is here to talk to us about that today. Before we kind of dive into that in the winter Bible workshop that you did, can you tell us how and when you initially came to faith and who had a spiritual influence in your life at an early age?
Well, you know, I was one of those people that we call raised in the church. So I never questioned my faith. There were times in my life where the world tried to take priority, like early in my work career or when my boys were playing sports. Things like that take your life sometimes. But my faith has always been strong. I guess the one most important person was my mother. Mm-hmm. She made sure I went not just to worship, but to Sunday school. And she made me read the Bible every day. That wasn't really cool when I was a kid, but wow, I feel so comfortable in the Word, and that's all her. And you know, the other people that were influential in my life were people that saw very early in my life that I loved kids, mm-hmm. and I had a talent there, and they gave me opportunities to teach when I was a teenager.
That's great.
And you can't imagine how that influenced my life.
That's awesome. So as a teenager, you obviously had some experience and mentoring happening. So when did you become fully committed to reaching the next person for Jesus?
Oh, you know, I'm talked to you about my mother, but she was all about that. I can even remember when I was in elementary school arguing about the Bible with somebody's mother. If they didn't say the right thing, I would stand right up and say, "No, let's look. I don't think you're right about that."
Wow.
But my passion has always been kids. And like I said, I started when I was a teenager. Kids are so easy to communicate with, and they're so real. And you know, I've just always loved reaching them. I hope that I've planted a few little seeds for them to carry through their life.
I think after 20 years of teaching, you probably have planted many seeds in our community. So describe the opportunity to disciple kids through a winter Bible workshop and share some obstacles or excitements you had in leading that recently.
Well, like you said, my career is science. It's the material science, so it's not doing very many experiments like I got to do with the kids. The kids will say, wait, you're not a science teacher, you're a church worker. And I'm like, no, I really am. But I really do love science. I love experiments, and I love watching kids do that. It was a whole bunch of fun. The only obstacle I can think of is COVID kept us from having everybody involved. So we only had, maybe
number.
eight kids at the most. We did make a lot of mess. As you know, we had to clean up a bunch, and I think I sent Leela home once with clay all in her hair. So I guess you could call that the obstacles, but for most, it was just very exciting and fun.
Yes. So how have you witnessed God reward your efforts at being a disciple maker in this different creative way?
I see God giving me strength and remembering things that I've studied and giving me new ways to help kids see the Bible, see God's love. That's all God. Mm-hmm. And one thing I'll share is yesterday was a hard day. I had a lot of problems. And the devil likes to get in and say, feel sorry for yourself. Mm-hmm. But then this morning I got up, and what did I have to do? I had to think about the fun times that I have teaching children. So, that's how God works. And, man, I just love it.
That's awesome. He encouraged you by giving you an experience that you can go back and lean on later on a hard day.
Yeah.
That's really great. So your discipleship efforts within your own family, here at our church, your work as in the science field, and in our community, serving is an example to all of us listening today. And so how would you encourage someone else listening to say yes to the next opportunity to make disciples, even though they may be busy like you with various duties and responsibilities you have? We all have something that our time is pulling us at, but you still said yes to this short-term little opportunity. So how would you encourage someone else to do the same?
I don't see how anybody can keep their faith strong and active without serving. And not everybody can teach children, not everybody can do everything, but there is something that you can do, something. And I would encourage everybody just to reach out to one of the leaders of their place where they worship, mm-hmm. and find a way to get connected and to serve. And it's amazing feeling when you've helped somebody, especially if you're helping them to find Jesus.
Oh, absolutely. And that's what we're all about. Well, I really appreciate you sharing with us today, and I want to thank you for coming and obviously continuing to disciple the next generations here at Clear Creek, as you do so well with your husband, Dan. And we'll be back later to talk to Jennifer Spry about baking in her home for this winter. We'll see you soon. All right, so welcome back. I'm now joined by Jennifer Spry, who was also instrumental in leading one of our winter Bible workshops, and hers was focused around baking and a Bible story. Jennifer is a humble servant with her family and friends in her neighborhood and at her workplace, and she's also very full of adventure and ambition, always trying new things with her God-given abilities. So welcome today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So I'm going to ask you the same kind of questions we asked Helen Cawthorn, who led the science workshop earlier. Tell us how you initially came to faith and who had a spiritual influence in your life at an early age.
Well, I guess I've always been churched. I grew up in church. My family went to church when I was younger, and so it's definitely always a part of my life. I guess I would say that I started, there was a time in my life where my family life got a little bit more chaotic and we stopped going to church. And around that time, I started going to a different church with a friend. It was around 10th grade. And it was then, I feel like my mind has always been like the studious and analytical type. And so I started hearing things that were different than what I'd heard like kind of my whole life in church, and then wanting to explore that. And so I just started at that point studying my Bible a little bit more. It was actually, I made the decision to be, rebaptized when I was around 17. And so I felt like that was kind of the start for me of, even though I'd always been in church, kind of taking it more seriously.
Making it your own.
Making it my own, yes.
So were people instrumental in that other than your friend, or just kind of guiding you through that time?
Yeah, I was actually dating a guy in high school at the time, and so he was who I started going to church with, and his family was, they facilitated answering some questions that I had, and then, my mom helped facilitate some questions that I had, and then I actually even ended up meeting with the preacher at the church that I had grown up with to ask some questions, and then the preacher at the new church that I was going to at that time to get some questions answered and cleared up, just as I was studying things and trying to figure them out for myself. So
that's great that they were available and
yeah,
willing to help you. So you mentioned as a teenager you became fully committed as a follower of Jesus. When did you become committed and then sharing your faith and reaching other people for Jesus?
Well, I think that's something that's still hard for me. I think it's easy for me to talk about Jesus and try to live my life in a certain way. It's harder for me to grow up and grab somebody and say, let me tell you my testimony, or let me tell you about Jesus. So I would say that I'm still not great about that, but especially like with this workshop, when it comes to children, I find it easy to share these things in a simple way with children, because their minds and their hearts are already so open. And so that is easier for me. And I'd say that I committed to it more fully when I started doing some medical mission trips and went to Haiti for several, I think I went for 5 years in a row before I had a child. And it was on those trips when that was like, it's always your job, but then it's like you go on that trip and it's your like,
you're enmeshed in it.
Your mission, yes, is to share. And I tapped into that more on those trips, and then would come back even more on fire to do that.
That's great. I'm glad you had those experiences outside of the U.S. even. So describe the opportunity you were given to disciple elementary girls through this winter Bible workshop, baking, and share some obstacles and excitement you had leading that.
Oh, I would love to. So I've been at home. I have a 1-year-old, and I've been at home with her since she was born. I've also been working full time. I work like a second shift job. And so I've been at home with her during the day, and then my husband takes over when I go into work, and I work until midnight or a little bit after. So my life has been very full. And I was actually, at the time you asked me about this, was trying to purge all responsibilities except for work and caring for my child. So it came out, it's funny how God does that. It came at a funny time, because at that time, everything extra in my life that I was doing, I was trying not to be doing. And so when you came to me and said, I think you told me that you had seen it quite some time ago and had thought of me, and, baking is a hobby of mine, and I love children anyway. And so when you mentioned it to me, I knew immediately in my heart that was something I would do and would love doing and should find space to do. So it was an easy thing to say yes to, even though I was it felt like I've had a really busy life right now, but it was something I definitely wanted to do, and ended up being such a joy. I think the girls loved it, and I definitely loved it too. But to be able to have them in my home and watch them together, and then help them learn stories about God, it ended up being the hugest blessing. It really did.
So maybe, is there like a funny memory you have of it? We only met 4 times every other week for February and March. So was there a funny memory you have from it now looking back at it, or just like Was it just chaos?
It was lots of
We
chaos.
had lots of messes.
Yes, it was very messy. Laura actually cleaned up most of the messes. It was, as we were finishing up, Laura and my husband would come in and just start cleaning the flour that was everywhere. But
I
yes,
remember
I think
specifically, I took a picture of all the forks with cake batter and icing and sprinkles in the sink, and I was like, yes, this was a good day.
Yes, I specifically remember, you'll probably remember this too. I was so touched because we were talking about, I don't even remember which lesson it was, but we were talking about God, like always making room for us, and that how we can come to him for anything.
The banquet table.
The banquet table, that's right. That's exactly what it was. So we were talking about coming to the table and sharing Jesus with others. And one of the girls, I think it was Aniston, was sitting on my couch, and she said, "What you just said reminds me of my favorite song." And I said, "Oh, well, what is your favorite song? Tell us." And she said, "Waymaker." And then she just started singing the chorus all on her own. And she, like, her sweet little voice. And then all of the girls apparently knew this song. And so they all chimed in, and they're in my living room. They were just singing the chorus of that song. And it was just it was like the most precious moment. So it's not it was like a touching memory, not a funny memory. There's plenty of funny memories too. Keeping them on track was the funny part, I guess.
Yeah, that definitely was a spontaneous moment of worship.
Yeah,
in your home.
Oh yeah, I felt God's presence at that moment, and I knew that I was doing like what I was supposed to be doing. So
that's good. So you kind of said a little bit how you knew that you were doing what God wanted you to be doing in that moment. How else have you witnessed God reward your efforts, even now that it's concluded, as being a disciple maker in this creative way?
Let's see. Other than the girls I think were very disappointed that the classes were ending. Coming into church, I feel like I've had several come up to me and say, "When are we going to bake again? Is it really over?" And things like that. It makes me, in a way, wish that it wasn't. 'Cause I don't know. I feel like they got a lot out of it and really enjoyed their time. I don't even let my kid like make messes like that at my house, but just having them all there with the intention of letting it go, letting them learn a Bible story and have the space to make as big of a mess as they wanted, but also learn how to bake something and then eat it at the end and see their hard work kind of pay off. It was like, that is what I love. And that was sweet.
Yes.
So I guess them coming up to me at church still and asking about it is confirmation that it was the right thing, and that's a blessing to me in and of itself.
And now you have all these, 8 to 10, well, I guess maybe 12 little girls that know you, know your baby girl.
Yes.
Know Tyler. And
well, that's a good point too. They were so good with Mary Claire. They were so good with my daughter, and my daughter, like, I want her to see me and Tyler loving people all the time. I want her to love people. I want her to be giving and generous with people. And so with them coming into our home and then other people coming into our home, she's only one, but she does love people. It's, you can tell she wants to give you a high five coming into the house. When those girls came, she was all squeals and just loved it. They'd hold her on the couch. And so that's a blessing to me as well, to watch her learn to love people.
And to receive the love from others too. So your discipleship efforts within your own family, the church, your work, and community is an example to all of us that have listened today. So how else would you encourage someone else to say yes to the next opportunity to make disciples?
I would say, this is something that I actually thought a lot about. I feel like some people get a little bit worn out, especially people who are workers in the church and chronically workers in the church. It's easy to get burnt out because once you do something, it seems like you're the person that people ask to do a lot of things. And I'm not talking about just church, just in life. If they see that you put your, mind to it and you're going to get it done, then naturally people are going to ask you to do more. And so I struggle with this and was struggling with it at that time, because it gets to a point when, you just want less responsibilities. But when you brought this to me, I knew that it was that I'm not trying to sound like cocky about this, but I knew it was like I was the person for that job. Like a baking workshop with elementary school girls, like that's the most Jennifer Spry thing I've ever heard in my life. And so I think for people, not saying yes to everything, but being confident that the opportunity, like you are the person for that opportunity. Like if you feel like that, then I think that you should just do it. Like I didn't know when I was going to have time. I didn't know how I was going to make the time. I didn't know who was going to watch my child while I did it. I didn't even know, what my work schedule would be, but I felt God's hand on my heart saying like, you are the person that needs to do this. And I felt it strongly. And so when an opportunity seems like it truly utilizes your talents and you get energy from it rather than it sucking energy from you, I think that's when you just have to say yes and everything else is going to fall into place.
Yeah, that's so true. So true. Well, I appreciate you sharing that today. And then also there was one other thing I remember you sharing at the end after everyone had left that last day, just about maybe this opening a way for you and Tyler to invite the children in your neighborhood and those families to your home or your backyard in a fun and unique way, but yet also kind of share God's truth with them. So you want to share any about that?
Yes, I don't have any specific plans in the works for that, but I do still feel a tug right after or maybe during the classes. There was a sermon that Josh had preached and he had mentioned something about us as Christians, hanging out with other Christians and how, I don't remember the exact way that he said it, but it not being super productive in making disciples for Christ. And I know that in my neighborhood, there are children who, don't go to church, probably don't hear a lot about God at home. There's also kids who do go to church and go to different churches. So it's kind of like you're trying, there's people that are, not even the same ethnicity. There's just lots of different situations. And so it's hard to know how to make that happen without, stepping on toes. But I don't want to be afraid of stepping on toes in that. I just want to figure out something and put the invitation out there and pray that the children who need to come and need to be there, God's going to provide those people. So I don't have, a specific plan. It is something I've prayed about and something that I'm still open to because I'd love to see,
your neighborhood.
Yeah, I would.
Be all about Jesus.
I would love it. And so there's like a few families that that go to church and are raising their kids with similar backgrounds and morals that, me and my husband hope to raise ours with. But I also know of specific children in our neighborhood that are not getting that. And it's those that I would love to reach like in the way that they need to be reached.
Yeah. And it may be through cookies.
Yeah, I'm good with that. Everybody loves cookies.
What else did we make? Cookies.
So we started the first time we made apple dumplings for Adam and Eve. That was fun. The second we did on the banquet, we did sugar. For Jesus Feeds the 5,000. We did the sugar cookies of fish, and they made the bread loaves.
Yes.
Yeah, there was good recipes.
And we had one particular daughter that came and joined us, of a staff member here that really loved sugar, and we got some classic pictures of her enjoying loading up her cookies, and
she's one of the ones I thought about for the funny story because we were talking with Jesus Feeds the 5,000. We were talking about fish, and I said, can you believe that Jesus was able to multiply these fish and loaves to feed this many people? And just out of the blue, she said, "My mom makes the best salmon," and she has a little bit of a lisp, and it was the most precious thing. I said, "Well, okay."
I bet Jesus did too. Well, that's all the time we have for today's chat. Thank you for joining me, Jennifer, and the Cawthorns, and sharing how an interest and talent open the door for you to make disciples of Jesus. To the rest of you out there listening, remember, if you are a disciple, a follower of Jesus, you are called to spread the good news to your neighbors throughout your city and to the ends of the earth. Grace and peace.